Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. 1 o'clock. Tayo na naman. Hopefully, mas kabisado na natin yung media. Ang hirap eh. Kasi pag mag-isa ka lang, wala namang director, walang assistant, lahat ng tools, ikaw ang nag-aasikaso eh. At the same time, siyempre, tuloy-tuloy yung takbo ng utak mo para ang lecture tuloy-tuloy at nang hindi makakatulog ang mga nakikinig. Okay, like we have said earlier, ano bang usapan natin earlier? Sabi natin, dapat respetuhin natin ang bayan. Alright? Dapat respetuhin natin ang kung sanang tanggalin tong chat eh. Kaka-istorbo. Okay. Anyway. Sige. Basta yung mga chat ninyo, tuloy-tuloy nyo lang ha. Sige. Show new comments. Anyway, basta lahat ng comments nyo pakita nyo dyan. So, good afternoon din. Okay. May hinihintay pa tayong ang dami pang wala, 10. But anyway, tuloy na natin ha. Ito ang ating attendance. Respetuhin natin ang resources ng bayan. Huwag naman nating pabayaan. Right? Huwag nating pabayaan. So, yan. Fill out the forms. I'll check that out and put that on record. So, there you have it. Paala kayo sa buhay nyo. Earlier, pinost ko sa inyo yung lecture natin for today. Definition ng philosophy. Alright? Yan, nandyan yan sa inyong board, Google Classroom board. Pero ito yung gagamitin ko kasi mas malapad to eh. Mas magandang mag-view dito, full screen natin. Yan. Definition of philosophy. Classic and modern senses of the term philosophy. Yan ang ating topic ngayon, ha? In particular, titingnan natin yung definition ng philosophy as pointed out by Pythagoras and his contemporaries. Alright? Kilala niyo ba si Pythagoras? So, yan yung nagtitinda ng taho doon sa krus na ligas. And in addition to the classic definition, meron tayong modern definition. Yung modern definition natin comes in 3 forms or 3 senses or 3 meanings of the term philosophy. Alright? Babalikan natin na mamaya. Okay, exit muna tayo dito ha. Balik tayo dun sa ating Google Classroom. Okay. Sir, may mga comments na tayo. Good afternoon, magandang hapon po. Sir, ask ko lang, if na-receive niyo po bang email using my UP mail account? Well, mamaya na natin pag-usapan ha. Mr. Bonoan. Okay. So, usap na tayo kasi mukhang marami na eh. Meron pang 7 na wala. Anak ko ng tinapay. Oh. Ano ba naman? 4 minutes? Kasi pagbigyan, kasi kanta muna ako. Anong gusto niyong kanta? BTS. Actually, mas gusto ko yung mas gusto ko yung kanta ng, ano ba yan? BTS. Mas gusto ko yung kanta ng, Big Bang. One of these days, pag-aaralan ko yung mga kanta niya. Fantastic Baby, di ba? Okay. Let's go on. Here it is. Check this out. All right. Can you see that? Pag pinapakita ko ba, lumalabas yung chat? Sana hindi, ano? Paano ba natin ansin yung chat na yan? Okay. Yan, wala na. Okay, wala na istorbo. Dito tayo. You remember this map? Ano yung pinakita natin sa mapa na yan? Sabi natin, merong boundary rito, di ba? Boundary ng ano? European tectonic plate, check, at African tectonic plate. Nag-collide, umakyat ito bumaba. Dahil nag-collide sila, ano nangyari? Dito, alright, nagkaroon tayo ng very specific geological formations. Kaya anong nangyari? One, ang mga Greeks naging martial society. Two, naging maritime society. Alright? Sila ay martial and maritime society. Tiyempo naman na merong mga nagninegosyo dito. Bakit? Kasi may civilization dito, may civilization dito, may civilization dito. At may civilization dito. Bakit? Kasi pag itong mga ito ay nawala doon sa dagat na may inclement weather, doon sila pumupunta sa isla na yan, na Crete. Etong mga ito, sabi nga natin, ay sila ay mga absolute rulers ang nagpapatakbo, including this. Kaso ito, naputukan ng bulkan. Nung pumutok yung bulkan, umabot hanggang China, natatandaan. At dahil naputukan ng bulkan, itong buong area na ito, nagkaroon ng civil or liberal type of religion. Yan, civil or liberal type of religion. Dahil nagkaroon sila ng ganyan, anong nangyari? Well, tuloy-tuloy nga ang sabi natin, naghanap ng alternative yung mga negosyante at nakita nila yung Athens dito, ginawang alternative. Kung saan naimbento ang naimbento ang democracy. Dahil naimbento ang democracy, you remember that? Naimbento ang democracy? Naimbento ang democracy, nagkaroon ng na highlight ang reasoning, sabi natin, na-highlight ang reasoning. Dahil na-highlight ang reasoning, naging very creative ang mga tao. Nagkaroon ng synergy ng mga ideas. Kasi pagka nagde-debate, nagre-reasoning. Pag nagre-debate at nagre-reasoning, nakikita ang the best of the ideas and nakikita ang the worst of the ideas. Therefore, merong synergy. Bakit? Kasi pagka nakita ang worst, binabawas. Pag nakita ang best, iniipon. At dumating ang panahon, mahusay ang kanilang technology, napaka-innovative, inventive, and so on and so forth. Kaso, itong mga taga-Persia, anong nangyari? Kwento natin, di ba? Ginera nung Persia yung mga Greeks. Di nagsama-sama, nagbuo ng kataas-taasang kagalang-galang ang katipunan ng mga Greeks. You know the story. Alright? Ito ngayon ang ating pag-uusapan. Dapat kasama ito sa usapan last meeting. Kaya alam, ako napadaldal masyado. Kagaya ngayon, napapadaldal na naman masyado. Okay. Question. Alright, question. Mentimeter tayo ngayon. Question tayo, ha? Question. Mentimeter. Nasaan na yan? Ito. Okay, sagutan nyo to, ha? Ito yung ating link sa Mentimeter. Okay? Yan, tingnan nyo nga. Ayan, ha? That's the link. Bibigay ko sa inyo ang code. Ito yung code. Kung hindi nyo maano yung link, ito yung code. Pwede naman. Alright? Ito naman yung code kung gusto nyo. Now, question. Okay. Tatandaan, may pinag-usapan tayo, mental models, looking at the sun. Alright? Ito, philosophies as mental models. Alright? One, tingin din eh. When two individuals look at the sun, one an astronomer, another someone ignorant of science, do they see the same thing? Tinanong na natin yan, pero bilangin natin yung mga sagot ninyo, ha? Tingnan nga. Tingnan nga natin. Ay. Yes, but they interpret differently. Oh, safe. Safe answer. Okay. Alright. Sige, bantayan natin. There are 28 of you. Dapat 15 lang ang tuturuan ko eh. Inuto ako ng inuto ng department. Ako naman si tanga. Oo ng oo. Ayan, umabot 28 po. Hirap ng buhay. Buti kung may dagdag na sweldo, wala naman eh. Meron tayong outlier. One. No. Hindi pwedeng mangyari, they can be said to see the same thing. So, tigos ng ulo Bagay ka siguro talaga dito sa UP. Outlier. Alright? Merong yes. Tinapatan. Outlier din siya. Yes naman siya. The other side of the pond. Alright? That's what democracy is all about, as you can see. Alright? That's democracy. You have options, you vote. Alright? Next question. Kita nyo, puro yes, but they interpret differently. Sige lang. Okay, babalikan natin yan mamaya, ito naman. You know what parallel lines are? Nag-geometry kayo, by law, required yan, do parallel lines intersect? Sige nga. Do parallel lines intersect? Parang tinanong pa, Parang, sira ba ulo ni... Uy, yes and no. May outlier talaga tayo, Sino kaya yan? Interesting. Yes, parallel lines intersect. Interesting din yan. But everybody will say, no. Kaya nga parallel line, Kayo naman. Suntukan na lang kayo ni Euclid. Kilala niyo si Euclid? Hindi nagtitinda ng taho yung si Euclid. Alright? Siya yung nagtitinda noong fishball doon sa Cruz Naligas. Alright? 17. No. How can parallel lines intersect? Diba? Obvious naman. Parang nagtanong pa. Pero meron tayong dalawang outlier. Sabi ng isa, yes. Sabi ng isa, yes and no. Parang mas palaisipan yun, yes and no. Kayong dalawa, matigas ang ulo. Sino kaya kayo? Alright? Yan. Wala. For practical purposes, lamang na lamang talaga yung no. Excuse me. Maliwanag naman, By the way, so far, so good. You can hear me. Sabihin nyo sa akin pag hindi nyo ako nadidinig, ha? Okay, magandang tanghali po. Ay, hindi na pala tanghali. Hapon na pala ngayon. Alright. So, balik tayo dito, ha? Mentimeter. 23 no, 1 yes, and no. Sige, let's move on. Nothing wrong when people see the same world differently. Wala bang masama dyan? Palagay ninyo. Supposing two individuals see the same world, but they see the same world differently. Is there anything wrong with that? Sabi ng isa, yes! Yes, papaano naman nga kung mag-asawa kayo? Mag-asawa kayo, pagkatapos you see the world differently. Paano na yan? Yes and no. Safe answer, Yes and no. No. Nothing wrong. Talaga, Yes, nothing wrong when people see the same thing differently. Paano nga kung mag-asawa kayo? Paano yan? Paano kung ikaw yung tatay, tapos yung isa yung anak, tatay at anak, paano na yan? Alright? 11 say yes and no. And 7 say, yes, there's nothing wrong with that. And 6 say, no, something is wrong with that. All right? Well, pagka kayo ay mga troll at kayo barkada ng mga DDS, ay delikado na maiba kayo ng pananaw. Diba? Kita nyo naman, pagka iba ang pananaw mo dun sa mga troll at mga DDS, you know what I'm talking about. Ano kaya kung sila tinanong natin? Ano? Alright, everybody? Simple questions. We'll get back to them later. Alright, then you will be on your own. I'm sure you'll be able to point out the significance of these questions in relation to our discussions. Alright? So, Athens won and they took over all of this. Nadamay pa yung Greece. But when they take over, I mean, they become dominant in terms of business. They do not take over militarily, although they had the best navy around. They were more into business. And their navy was more into protection of the business. And everybody was happy. All right? Everybody was happy. Now, may tanong ako. Banda rin sa direction na rin, nandun yung British Isles. Ang tanong ganito. Saan unang mahusay ang development ng English? Di siyempre sa England. Kaya nga English Kaya English. Ang next question nagbago ba ang ganyang kalagayan? Ang sagot, kaya ako nga tinanong nagbago. Paano nagbago? Excuse me umiinom ako Nagbago kasi dumating ang panahon, ang dynamic development ng English wala na sa England. Nandun sa Boston, nandun sa Chicago, nandun sa New York, nasa Philadelphia. Mga city sa eastern coast of the United States. Bakit nagkaganon? Kasi dahil sa promise of the New World, the Americas, yung dami ng mga travelers from Europe, dumagsa sa Amerika ang bagsak dun sa Eastern Coast, dun sa mga city na yon. The biggest traffic of humans nung panahon una, sometime in the early modern period, traffic of humans ay between Europe and the Americas. And ang nangyari, around the English language, dumating ang maraming iba-ibang tao from different places from Europe and nagkaroon ng synergy kasi may demokrasya sa Amerika ng ideas and humusay ang kanilang pananaw sa mundo, humusay ang kanilang English language. Alright? Ngayon, ang tanong ganito, anong kinalaman niyan dito sa logic at saka sa, wala, gusto ko lang magkwento. Alright, next question. Is it the same situation na ang dynamic development na English ay nasa East Coast of the United States? Ang sagot, hindi. Ang dynamic development ng English language nandun sa places like Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and all those cities on the west coast of the United States. Bakit? Again, kasi yung pinakamalaking traffic of human beings ay between Asia Pacific, mostly East Asia, Asia Pacific, and the United States. So, ang pinaglalaro ang area ng mga exchange ng ideas ay nandyan sa West Coast ng United States. Yun na nga, magmula Seattle, nandyan ang Microsoft, nandyan ang Amazon, San Francisco, nandyan ang Oracle, nandyan ang Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, nandyan ang, south of Los Angeles, nandyan ang Google, and so on and so forth. Now, anong kinalaman niyan dito? Kasi ganito, ang Athens, hindi naman siya nag-declare ng empire, pero naging dominant siya. And so, ayan, may dynamic world. New world of a democratic liberal world. Kaso, nag-overlap yan sa old world ng mga Egyptians at old world ng mga Persians. Yan ngayon. Alright? Now, focus your attention on this area kung saan nag-overlap ang mga Persians at saka mga Egyptians on one hand at saka mga Athenians on the other hand. Itong area na ito ay katulad ng dynamic area ngayon sa West Coast na United States at katulad ng dynamic area noon sa East Coast ng United States. Nandyan ang mga new ideas, nandyan ang mga new paintings, nandyan ang mga kung ano-ano. Alright? New technologies. Ito. Kasi hindi naman mahina ang contribution ng ancient Persia at saka ancient Egypt. Sinamahan naman ng contribution ng Athens. So, ay di napakaganda. Alright? Ngayon, ang mga unang-unang generation na nandito na sumikat ay yung generation ni Thales. Alright? Thales. Yan. Okay. Itong itsura ni Thales. Yan. Sikat na sikat siya. Kaya meron tayong mga rebulto niya, mga bust niya. Kasi sobrang sikat siya. Talino niya eh. Parang ngayon sikat si Einstein, di ba? Or sikat sino ba? Si Blackpink. Yan. Alright? Balik tayo dito. Now, si Thales ay Greek. Nabuhay sa henerasyon na sanay sa demokrasya. Dito. Alright? Ano nangyari? Napunta siya rito. Nung napunta siya rito sa Persia, natutunan niya yung alam ng mga Persians, namely, mathematics ng mga Persians, mahusay kasi gumagawa sila ng ziggurats at saka yung kalendaryo. Alright? Kalendar ng mga Persians na ginagamit for thousands of years. Bakit importante? Kasi ganito nangyari. Nung natutunan ni Thales and later ng mga estudyante niya, followers niya, yung mathematics at saka calendar making ng mga Persians, nagka-problema. Bakit? Ang sinasabi ng mga Persians, yung knowledge ng mathematics at yung knowledge ng calendar making, yan ay sacred. Yan ay sacred knowledge. Meant only for the chosen people. Alright? Parang si Harry Potter. Sabi nila, pag yan ay napunta sa kamay, yung knowledge na yan, napunta sa kamay ng mga hindi naman chosen ones, magagalit ang mga Diyos. Remember, si Thales, tsaka yung mga Greeks, sanay sa demokrasya. Una, sanay sa debate. Pagka sanay ka sa debate, nakikita mo na, very important kings can be wrong. Hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon, ang mga hari nananalo ng debate. Nakikita mo na generals can be wrong. Alright? Hindi lahat ng pagkakataon, ang mga hari, ang mga general nananalo sa debate. Even better, priests can be wrong. Miski pare, high priest man siya or high priestess, pwede siyang matalo sa debate. Pwede siyang mukhang tanga sa debate, parang si Harry Roque. Alright? So, anong nangyari? Una, ay di kamot ng ulo yung mga Greeks. Totoo kaya itong sinasabi ng mga pare na ito. Remember, ang may hawak ng sacred knowledge sa Persia at saka sa Egypt, mga pare yung mga yan. Una, tanong agad sila, tama kaya itong Kasi bakit mangyayari na kami, mga Greeks, conqueror? sila mga Persians conquered. Meron silang Diyos, pagkatapos yung Diyos nila, bibigyan kami ng mga gift of knowledge as chosen ones. Parang ano yan, chosen enemy. Parang malabo, di ba? But anyway, imagine nyo ang mga sanay sa demokrasya, mahilig sa debate. Alright? So, ano ngayon nangyari? Nagdagdag pa ng tanong. Bakit? Kasi pag may demokrasya, merong eleksyon. Pag may eleksyon, may boboto. Para maboto, dapat kilala ka. Dalawang bagay, two things. Ikaw ay kilala kasi ikaw mayaman, bigay ka ng pera, parang si Manny Pacquiao. O marami kang project, magpapagawa ka ng public bath, sa Greece ginagawa yan. Magpapagawa ka ng public bath or magpapagawa ka ng public bridge na kailangan ng bayan, magpapagawa ka ng public source of water, merong fountain, yung ibang fountains, buhay pa hanggang ngayon, kasi makikita nyo nga sa Rome, di ba? So, nag-e-enjoy ang public and therefore, ibinoboto ka. Ang problema, pag wala kang pera, paano kayo boboto? Madali lang. Maghanap ka ng dunong, ng katalinuhan, at pag yan ay marami kang napulot na dunong at iyong isinyer sa mga kababayan mo, iboboto ka rin. So either you share your wealth or you share your knowledge. Yan ang ugali ng mga tao sa demokrasya. So pinipiloso po nung sina Thales, yung mga pare, na talaga chosen ones, paano nangyari yun? Kami conqueror. And then dinagdagan pa. Sabi nila, gusto namin i-share. Sabi ng mga pare, paano nyo i-share? Yan only for the sacred. Only for the chosen ones. Di malaking gulo, di ba? So far, so good. Nasusundan nyo? Ngayon, ano nangyari? Well, liberal naman sila So, pwede nilang hindi sundin ang sinasabi ng mga pari din sa Egypt at mga pari din sa Persia. Wala kaming pakialam sa inyo. Basta, itong nasa isip namin, ito yung susundin namin. Alright, yung mga pari dito, hindi pinakinggan. Ang ginawa ni Thales, sinunod nila yung ugali nila, demokrasya. Nag-sharing. In the case of Thales, nag-share nga siya sa kanyang mga estudyante. Yan. Now, in the process of sharing with his followers and students, may diskusyon. Napansin nila ito. Ano napansin nila? Napansin niya, ni Thales at mga estudyante niya na, with these tools, what are these tools? Ano yung tools? Mathematics. Ano yung tools? Calendar. With these tools, they could predict the future. Nothing new. But from the point of view of the ancient Persians, this was because of the gods that you can predict the future. But from the point of view of Thales and his students, this was a big question. Why? Because remember, from the point of view of Thales and his students, ang na-highlight reasoning. Remember? Ang na-highlight, reasoning. And ang tingin nila, it is out of their skill for reasoning, it is out of their capacity to reason that they are able to understand the nature of mathematics and the nature of calendars. So, here are two tools, mathematics and calendars, that you are able to have thanks to reasoning. And what can you do? You can predict the future. You know when the tides will come, the tides will go. You know when the moon is up and the moon is down. You know when the seasons will come and therefore when to plant, when not to plant. Naisip ni Thales, siguro mali itong mga pari na ito kasi enjoy kaming mag-share dapat nga isineshare to lagi. And then naisip ni Thales, sharing, ito nga pala ganito ang characteristic Tools, thanks to reasoning, we can use to predict. Ano yung kasunod? Ang kasunod, sinabi ngayon nila, thanks to this capacity to have these tools, we now are what? We now are able to control our future because we can plant and we can harvest depending on what we get out of the calendar, for example. Ang tanong nila, might there be other tools? Ayan ang tanong. Might there be other tools? Might there be other tools with which you can explain and predict on the basis of your capacity to reason? Diyan nag-iba ang mundo ng Western civilization. Yung mga konti-konti lamang na mga usap-usapan no may demokrasya, na-develop ang kanilang ugali na naha-highlight ang reasoning. Nakita nila ang mga pare pala pwedeng magkamali, ang mga hari pwedeng magkamali, ang mga generals pwedeng magkamali. At dahil sa ganyang attitude, anong nangyari? Dumating ang panahon, naghahanap sila. What are these tools with which we can explain and predict the future on the basis of our capacity to reason? And when they asked, that's the time they later came to invent biology, they gave it a name. They came to invent physics, they gave it a name. They came to invent logic, they gave it a name, and now we're studying it. And then they came to invent geometry that you're still required by law to study, and so on and so forth. Diyan nagsimula ang philosophy. Alright? Dito, sa kapaligiran na ito. Kung hindi sana, yung mga lahat ng binanggit natin ay nangyari, itong kapaligiran na ito, hindi naging dynamic. Pero naging dynamic nga at nung naging dynamic, ayan, lumabas, na-invento tuloy ang philosophy. Yan. Kailan na-invento ang philosophy? Sino ang inventor? Di yan nga si Thales and his students, his followers. Alright, ito si Thales. Nabuhay around 620 to 546 BC. Alright? So far, so good. Importante, malaman ninyo, pwede pala magkamali ang pare. Pwedeng magkamali si Duterte. Well, hindi naman pwedeng magkamali. Lagi ngang mali. Pwede magkamali ang mga general, kagaya ni General Galvez. Sino pa? Si General Anyo. Alright, na pinagpipilitan kayo merong ano ba yun? Divider board dyan sa inyong motorsiklo. Alright, so, here is now Thales and his friends, they now invent philosophy. Might there be other tools with which we can explain and predict the future independent of the gods and the deities, dependent on our capacity to reason? That is what makes Western civilization unique. They believe that what? Men can have control over their destinies, that's one. Two, independent of the gods and the deities. And three, on the basis of their capacity to reason. Very unique. Hindi dyan natapos ang kwento. Ang problema kasi, ito si Thales, nagpipilosophy sa leisure hours nila. Mga may kayang tao, may leisure hours. Only when they have leisure hours, then they would discuss philosophy. In other words, ang philosophy para sa kanila, hobby. Parang kayo, pagka merong konting pera at konting panahon, anong hobby ninyo? Ay di punta kayo sa Star Bukol, alright? Ay hindi na pala pwede ngayon, ano? Di manood kayo ng Netflix, alright? Di manood kayo ng, ano nga yung sikat doon sa YouTube ngayon, na martial artist? Anybody, can you tell me about that martial arts series dyan sa YouTube? Alright? Hobby lang ang philosophy. Yung sumunod na henerasyon, ito. Ang pangalan niyan, sino? Si Pythagoras. Si Pythagoras, LGBTQ. Pythagoras. Bakit ko binanggit? Kasi si Pythagoras, sensitive na mama. Sensitive na mama, na-in love sa philosophy. In love na in love si Pythagoras sa philosophy. Alright? Matanda lamang ito si Thales ng mga less than 50 years eh. So, one generation. Matanda lang yan ng one generation, dini kay Pythagoras. Now, ito si Pythagoras, sabi niya, I want to spend my entire life doing philosophy. Yan ang pagkakaiba nila. Alright, sabi ni Pythagoras, I want to spend my entire life doing philosophy. Ito, hobby lang to sina Thales eh. Ito, hindi ah. Gusto niya his entire life doing philosophy. Alright. Eh di ano nangyari? Sabi ni Pythagoras, pardon the expression, puta na, I'm going to spend my entire life doing something I don't even have a name for it. I don't even have a name for it. Dapat naman may tawag, di ba? So sabi ni Pythagoras, ay mag-iimbento ako ng tawag. Ano bang tawag dyan sa lintris na yan? And this is the name he gave it. This is the name he gave it. Alright? He gave the name Philosophia. Alright? Philosophia, coming from the word philos, meaning to say love of something or deep interest of in something, and Sophia or Sophos. Sophos is the singular form, Sophia is the plural form, all right? Meaning to say wisdom or knowledge. Yan. So, ano ang classic definition? We call this the classic definition. Ano ang classic definition ng philosophy? Simple lang. Ayan. Love of wisdom. Yan. Okay? So far, so good. Yan ngayon ang classic definition ng philosophy. Now, ito yung punto ha. Baka magkalimutan. Lipat tayo ng slide. Yan. Now, natatandaan ninyo, pinaliwanag ko, paano bang mag-isip ang mga Greeks? Ano nito? Kagaya ni Pythagoras, ganito siya mag-isip eh. Sabi niya, ang ating minds, parang basket of goods eh. You have one thought expressed in a sentence, today the sun has risen from the east. You have another thought expressed in another sentence, yesterday the sun has risen from the east. And another thought, and another thought, and another thought. And thanks to your capacity to reason, you connect them to one another and you see, if all of these thoughts are like this, then as a rule, whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. Then you can say, if that is correct, then if tomorrow the sun will rise, then it will rise from the east. And then if I can do that, make predictions like that, then I can say when there will be rains, when there will be no rains, therefore I will have more harvest, therefore I have wealth, therefore I'll have, and so many things. All right? In other words, for the Greeks, to be able to predict the future, this is where you go to. In your mind, you look at how your thoughts connect to one another. All right? Interconnected. That's how you look into the future. And therefore, that's how you have control over your life. Remember, all right? Parang farmer. Okay? Taken all together, ito nga yung sinasabi ni Pythagoras na wisdom or knowledge. Alright? Kaya gusto nating magka-interest. Kaya may interest tayo dyan. Kasi yung wisdom or knowledge, that will give us our capacity to predict the future and therefore have control over our lives. There you go. Alright? So, philosophy, love of wisdom. Oh. Okay? Yan. Okay. Eh, ano pa? Ito pa. Hindi pa tapos yan. Mahaba pa yung usapan natin. contemporarily, meron tayong tatlong definition in the modern times of philosophy. Alright? Meron tatlo. Ito natutunan namin. Actually, makikita nyo elsewhere in so many books. Pero basically, natutunan namin ito sa aming teacher na department chair ng aming department. Si Dr. Armando F. Bonifacio. Meron siyang paper, pwede niyong hanapin, makikita niyo sa net, senior ng isang professor, 3 senses of philosophy. Alright? In other words, 3 meanings of the term philosophy. According to him, there are 3 senses of the term philosophy. One of the senses of the term philosophy, he calls reflective method. Reflective method. Ayan. Ano ba yung reflective method na yan? Sa totoo lang, walang kinalaman yun sa salamin. Alright? Walang kinalaman sa salamin. Hindi, meron pala. Alright, paliwanag ko ha. Yung 3 senses of philosophy, ang number 1 na meaning ng term philosophy sa modern sense, and there are 3 meanings, ang number 1 ay reflective method or method of reflection. Supposing you live in a world, of course you do, and in your world, you have many things like some kind of tree, all right? And some kind of house, yes? All right? And may bundok pa sa likod, tapos may rice fields, all right? So far, so good. And then may mga ibon-ibon, yan. And then meron kang pet kalabaw dyan sa doon sa paligid ng mga puno. All right? What's the point? When you have a mind, of course you do. All right? When you have a mind, there is some kind of a reflection of this tree, for example, in your mind. You can imagine the tree in your mind. Yes? Ergo the word reflection. In your mind, you have some thought about the house. Yes? That's in your mind. So, like a mirror, your mind reflects what's going around you. All right? That's the word reflection. And ang tawag natin, when you go into your mind, there is introspection. Introspection. Alright? Ngayon, yung mga ancient people, hindi natin katulad. Nabanggit ko na ito last time Pagka may nadidinig sila na voices in their minds, they think these are the voices of the gods and the deities. Meron nga sila halimbawa sa Greece na festival. Yung festival na yan, yung mga high priest maglalabas ng sangkatutak na mga alak, wine. Bakit? Kasi yung festival ay festival ng god of wine, si Bacchus. At bakit bibigyan ng wine ng ordinaryong mga tao? So that they will have an opportunity to talk to the gods and the deities. And so they drink the whole day. And by the time dumating ng hapon, they're talking to the gods and the deities. Although pag minsan, diablo yata ang kausap pagka nababad trip. Alright? When they hear voices in their minds, they think these are the voices of the gods and the deities. Si Herodotus, yung inventor of history, the way we know history as a discipline, sabi ni Herodotus, tinanong si Herodotus, paano ka nakakapagsulat ng pagkadami-daming mga libro? Sabi ni Herodotus, hindi ko rin alam I just hear the voices of the gods and I write them. Yan ang sagot niya kayo, when you hear voices in your mind, I already said so, you think these are yours. And so you put music into them and then you come up with a song and by the time you know it, kasi sikat ka na ni Blackpink, kasi sikat ka na ng BTS, and then, you know, you live happily ever after. Because you think those thoughts in your mind are yours. Alright? And yung ganyang attitude natin ngayon, original yan sa mga Greeks. At sinasabi nila, when you're involved with introspection, those thoughts that you come across are yours. And on the basis of these thoughts, you are able to have control over your life. Alright? Now, in other words, philosophy as a term, alright, philosophy as a term can be used to mean some kind of a reflective method or a method of reflection. Alright? Method of reflection. That is unique to the Greeks. Yan. Alright? So, siya niya sabi, oh, what are you doing? I'm doing philosophy. What does that mean? Well, I am reflecting on what's going on in my world, thinking that, you know, as I go along, well, stumble upon some principle, a principle with which I can predict the future and therefore have control over my life. Oh, di ba masaya? Alright? That's one. But there is another way of using the term philosophy in the modern sense. Right? Ano yan? Balik tayo dun sa atin kaninang three senses. Alright? Sabi ni Dr. Armando Bonifacio, hindi lang naman yan ang ibig sabihin ng philosophy in the modern sense. Meron pang isa. Ang sabi niya, sometimes we use the term philosophy to mean what? Intellectual presupposition. Yan. Eh ano bang ibig sabihin ng intellectual presupposition? Let me explain. Alright? Let me explain. Tinanong ko kayo kanina. Ang tanong ko kanina, ano? Do parallel lines intersect? Do parallel lines intersect? Tinanong ko yan kanina, di ba? Yan. Alright? Iwanan muna natin si Thales at saka si Pythagoras. Punta tayo sa mundo ni Euclid. Kilala niyo si Euclid? Ito, ilan sa mga isinulat ni Euclid? Yan. Si Euclid umimbento ng Euclid of Alexandria. Si Euclid siyang umimbento ng geometry na hanggang ngayon pinag-aaralan ninyo. Doon sa kanyang libro Elements, kung saan nanggaling ang pinag-aaralan yung geometry, meron siyang mga binabanggit. Ano yung binabanggit niya? Ito, halimbawa, sabi niya, ang geometry as a system, meron niyang meron niyang limang axioms, 5 rules, at I hope naintindihan yung gusto kong sabihin. Now, ito yung problema. Pag tinignan nyo ang 5 basic rules ng geometry, 5 lang napakasimple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Makikita nyo may problema. Bakit? Kasi yung 1 to 4 ay simple, very simple sentences or phrases if you like. Pero pagpunta nyo dun sa 5th postulate, ang haba. So, para ka ditong may basketball team. Ano yung basketball team mo? Yung team members 1 to 4 ay miyembro ng 7 Dwarfs. Yung team number 5 ay si Yao Ming. Problema. Sabi ni Ptolemy, isa doon sa mga nakapansin, sabi niya, baka naman yung number 5 rule na yan ng geometry, Mr. Euclid, ay hindi dapat kasama ng axioms. Tungkol ba saan yung number 5? Tungkol sa parallel lines. Alright? Ang sinasabi ng number 5, if you have a line like this, ito, B to M, and another line like this, A to I, with a reference line, ito, ABT. So long as this angle, anong angle? ABM, or this angle ABI, or both are less than 90 degrees, then what it would mean will be itong line na ito at saka ito, line AI at line BM, they will intersect. The only way they will not intersect is pagka ito 90 degrees, ito 90 degrees. Then they will be parallel lines. Now, kung ano man ang gusto nating sabihin, from the point of view of Euclidean geometry, parallel lines do not intersect. At kayo naniniwala dyan. Kita nyo naman yung sagot nyo kanina. Alright? Ano yung sagot nyo kanina? Parallel lines do not intersect. 23. Ito ang malupit. Ayan. Anong malupit? Kung nag-aaral kayo ng physics, alam ninyo na ang mundo, kahit paano, masabi natin, nagsimula sa isang singularity. From that singularity, nagkaroon ng explosion, tawag natin the Big Bang, may expansion. Nag-e-expand ang mundo, ang universe, in all directions. Alright? Nag-e-expand. In fact, yung nagpatunay ng expansion, nagbigay sa atin ng actual proof, binigyan ng Nobel Prize noong 1960s, dalawa sila. Ngayon, anong ibig sabihin yan? Kung patuloy na nag-e-expand ang universe, pag ikaw nag-drawing ng line, if you draw a straight line, you will have a problem. If you draw a straight line, to draw a straight line will take time. From t of 0, will take time from t of 0 to t of n. Alright, kahit na anong iksi ng iyong ginawang line, it will take time to draw the line. But the problem is, as time goes by, the universe is expanding. Yes? As time goes by, the universe is expanding. What does that mean? Because it takes a while for you to draw the line. By the time you finish the line that you have drawn will curve. Because the universe has already expanded. In an ever-expanding universe, there is no such thing as a straight line. All lines will curve. That's why if you draw any line in parallel to another line, that parallel line will intersect with the other line. In fact, in this universe, the sum of the angles of any triangle will always be more than 180 degrees. Alright? So far, so good. Diyan pumasok ang sa usapan, are. Si Albert Einstein. Noong 19th century, hindi maipaliwanag ng mga scientists. Using Newtonian physics. Kung bakit meron kang vacuum sa loob ng isang bote, magsindi ka ng kandila, light can travel through the vacuum. How can something, namely light, travel through nothing? Na-discover pa rin nila na electricity can travel through nothing. How can electricity travel through a vacuum? But they do. Light and electricity can travel through vacuum. At hindi malaman-laman ang sagot using Newtonian physics. Naalaman lamang natin ang sagot dahil sabi ni Einstein, yung Euclidean geometry ay merong limits. Yung Euclidean geometry dapat palitan. At ang ipinalit, non-Euclidean geometry. Doon sa non-Euclidean geometry, yan na nga ang kaibahan among other things, ha? Ano yung kaibahan? Sa non-Euclidean geometry, the sum of the angles of a triangle can be more than 180 degrees and parallel lines may intersect. Alright? Parallel lines may intersect. Now, using non-Euclidean geometry, Maraming na ipaliwanag si Einstein. Binigyan na nga ng Nobel Prize noong 1920 eh. Alright? So, tanong. Do parallel lines intersect? Pag ang ginamit mo, Euclidean geometry, di sasabihin mo, they do not. Yun ang iyong intellectual presupposition. Parallel lines do not intersect. That's your intellectual presupposition, and therefore you end up with Newtonian physics. Therefore you end up with Newtonian physics. You go along with Newton. But if you have a different view, and you say, parallel lines may intersect, then you have non-Euclidean geometry, then you end up with Einsteinian physics. Now, in this way, we are able to say, you have two different philosophies. In the sense that you have two different intellectual presuppositions. Yan. Alright, so far so good. Intellectual. Bakit presupposition? Wala tayong way na masabi in absolute terms sinong tama, sinong mali. Kasi may mga bagay magandang gamitin, Euclidean geometry at Newtonian physics. Pero may mga ibang bagay mas magandang gamitin, Einsteinian physics. Pero doon sa dalawa, walang perfect. Alright? So we can only presuppose. Alright? Intellectual presupposition. Okay, that's another way of looking at philosophy. Alright? So, yan yung pangalawa na modern sense of philosophy. Ano yung pangalawa? You use the term philosophy, the first, to identify some reflective method that is unique to the Greeks. But also, you use the term philosophy, secondly, to identify some intellectual presupposition. Alright? Hindi natapos yan. Sabi ni Dr. Armando Bonifacio, may pangatlong use or meaning ang term philosophy sa modern times. Ano yung pangatlo? Sabi niya, belief system. Alright? Yan yung pangatlo. Anong ibig sabihin yan? Maliwanag. Sinabi na nga natin kanina eh. Ano yung sinabi natin kanina? Tandaan nyo, pinag-usapan natin si Pythagoras. Ang sabi nga natin kanina, di ba? The Greeks and even us today, when we think of our thoughts in our minds, we think of them as linked to one another. Alright, in some kind of matrix. This is linked, Alright, this is linked to this, which is linked to this, linked to this, linked to this. Alright, and when all of our thoughts are linked to one another, then you end up with saying, well, what do you have? You have a system. Alright? What kind of system? A system of thoughts. Now, each thought you remember. Why do you remember them? Because you believe them. So, each thought is a belief. You believe that today the sun has risen from the east. You believe that yesterday the sun has risen from the east. You believe that the day before yesterday the sun has risen from the east. Those are beliefs. And when you put all those beliefs together, you see a pattern. And what's the pattern? As a rule, whenever the sun rises, it rises from the east. And then because you're connecting all those beliefs to one another, then you connect a belief about tomorrow, about the future. And what are you saying? If tomorrow comes, when the sun rises, you expect it to rise from the east. And so you predict the future. So another way of saying it is this. When you use philosophy to refer to the system. What system? System of beliefs. All right? So that's another way of looking at philosophy. Philosophy refers to some kind of a belief system or system of beliefs. Yan. So far, so good. So, lumalabas, ano yung lumalabas? Meron tayong paliwanag kung anong ibig sabihin ng philosophy. Ay, napunta doon. Okay, miss naman. Lumalabas, meron tayong paliwanag na ano, na classic. Natin. Meron tayong paliwanag na classic definition. Ay, ano ba naman yun? Classic. Ano yung classic definition? Love of wisdom. Alright? And very obvious, the wisdom that we refer to are those thoughts that come together as a system in our minds. And guess what? Some of those thoughts in our beliefs, among our beliefs, are so dominant they are easy to see. It's like some person, pag tiningnan mo, kilala mo ay si Professor De Villa yan, bakit ang laki-laki ng tenga o ang laki-laki ng ilong. Nakikita nyo yung intellectual presupposition. So you identify the belief system by identifying the unique intellectual presupposition. Halimbawa, yung intellectual presupposition ng Kristiyano, isa lang ang pwede mong maging asawa. Eh ano yung intellectual presupposition ng mga Muslim? Pwede kang magkaasawa ng sobra sa isa. Oh, kaswerte naman ng mga Muslim. Ay. I'm just kidding. Alright? Now, dagdagan pa natin yung kwento. Ang dagdag natin na kwento, lumalabas na wala namang conflict dito sa classic at saka sa modern. Wala namang conflict. Biniglan lang ng modern ng more details yung classic. That's one. Ano pa isang babanggitin natin? Dapat matandaan natin na yung reflective method, alright, ulitin natin. Dapat yung reflective method, wag nating kalimutan, ay ano, nangyayari, produkto yan ng intellectual presupposition. At produkto din yan ng belief system. Alright? But on the other hand, yung belief system, produkto din yan ng intellectual presupposition. Pero yung intellectual presupposition, produkto din yan ng reflective method. Nahilo na tayo, nakakaliyo anak ng tinapay. Bottom line. What's the bottom line? Bottom line, all of these three are also related to one another. Alright? They are related to one another as part of our system of thoughts. Hindi sila magkakahiwalay. Alright? So, ganun pa rin, classic, paniwala natin, we have a system of thoughts called wisdom, with which we gain control over our future and our future, and therefore we become rational beings, humans. Alright? So far, so good. Any question? Wala bang dagdag na comment? Ayun! Yes! Cobra Kai. Mamaya. Ay, hindi pala. Friday. Sa Friday, buong gabi ako magko-Cobra Kai. Salamat po. Yan. Pasensya na ha. Ay, yan ang hilig ko no ako college. Paborito ko yan si Bruce Lee. Kaya ako nag-varsity ng taekwondo nung panahon namin. Kaya rin nabasag tong aking ilong. Alright. So far so good. We now have what? A definition of philosophy, which was our original intention. Gusto nating makita, ano ba ang definitions ng philosophy? Alright? Naku, nawala na ako. Nasaan ba yun? Binigay ko sa iyo Sa inyo. Ito. Remember, yan ang ating pinag-uusapan Kaya ako hinahanap kasi gusto ko sa inyong pakita ito. Siyempre, sino nagsabi sa atin ng classic definition, di ba, mga Greeks? Ngayong panahon natin, ito ang sikat. Salamat kay Michael Gidzi. ng Bulgaria. Meron tayong picture nito. Oh, question. Anyone, please, paki-comment nga. Anong picture yan? Picture ng ano yan? Pakita ko ulit, ha? Picture ng ano ito? Anyone who recognizes that? That is what you call a circuit board. That is what you call a circuit board. Alright? Circuit board. In fact, yung microchips, alright, microchips are also circuit boards. If you look at microchips using electron microscope, you will see that they're also circuit boards, like this. Alam niyo ba kung anong gusto sabihin yung mga linya-linya na yan? Ang gusto sabihin ng mga linya-linya ng mga yan ay ito. Anong ito? Yung sinasabi ni Pythagoras. Ano sinasabi ni Pythagoras? Oh, ay sinasabi nga ni Pythagoras, remember, na we have wisdom in our minds, and all of these are connected to one another. Yes. All right, all of these are connected to one another in some kind of matrix or belief system. Yes. And on the basis of this, beginning with Pythagoras, by the time you know it, naka-invento na tayo ng ano? Circuit boards. And then by the time you know it, naka-invento na tayo ng ano? Ng microchips. And by the time you know it, nalaman na natin bakit ganito ang itsura ng neurons ng ating mga brains. Ganyan na itsura ng neurons natin eh. Alright, you have here your dendrites. Alright, and you have here your synapse. Alright, and this is your axon. Noong una nilang nakita, noong 19th century, bakit ganyan ang itsura? Bakit ganyan ang anatomy ng neurons? Hindi nila maipaliwanag eh. Ngayon, alam na natin, kaya pala branching ang dendrites at saka ang synapses, eh kasi sila ay ano, pang-connection sa mga kung ano ng bits of information. And so we now have neural networking and we now understand how the brain works. And all of that, what we know today, comes from our understanding of the definition of philosophy. Okay? Ano yung definition ng philosophy? Ito na nga, love of wisdom and the modern sciences. We use them to refer to the reflective method that we do, the intellectual presuppositions that we have, and the belief system that we carry around in our mind. There you go. So far, so good. Ha? Nakakaintindihan tayo. Eh, sino yan? Si Thales. Sino yan? Si Pythagoras. Now, balik tayo kay Pythagoras. Si Pythagoras ay LGBT, di ba? Nabanggit ko. Alright? Si Pythagoras ay sensitive. Nabanggit ko, di ba? Si Pythagoras ay excellent lyre player. Kung panahon ngayon, excellent na guitar player, pero hindi naman gitara uso noon eh. Ang uso noong panahon niya, lyre. Alright, that's Pythagoras for you. Bakit tayo nitong... Anyway, eto, the lyre. Alright, si Pythagoras, magaling tumugtog. Now, bilang isang pilosopo, meron siyang napansin. Napansin ni Pythagoras, if I pluck one string of one kind of length, it will have a very specific tonal value. If I pluck another string with another length, ito, iba-ibang lengths to eh. Another string with another length, it will have a different tonal value. Now, this is the catch. When I pluck, supposing ako si Pythagoras, when I pluck several strings together, I produce a tonal value that is so unique, it cannot be produced by any single string. Today, we call such tonal value as a chord. Chord. And when you have a beautiful chord, the tonal value produced is amenable, something you like, something sweet. Pero pag minsan, you pluck several strings together, the tonal value do not like. They make the hair on your back on the back of your neck stand up. We describe such chords as discordant. Discordant. Now, ito yung catch. Ano yung catch? Pagka meron kang lyre, alright? Sinabi nga ni Pythagoras, you pluck several strings together, you produce a chord that gives you sweet sound. Pagka sweet ang sound, sabi niya, merong harmony. Yan. Pag sweet ang sound, merong harmony. Harmony. Today, we have another term for harmony, we say coherence. They cohere. Meron kang coherence. Alright? Remember those words, harmony and coherence. Ito ang isa pang legacy ng mga Greeks. Kasi as our thoughts hang together in our minds, there seems to be some kind of harmony among them. Such harmony that when we are able to understand the harmony, we are able to predict the future. Alright? The more harmony, the more reliable our prediction of the future. The more coherence, the more reliable our prediction of the future. The more we connect our brains to one another, our brain matter to one another under some harmony, the more we are able to understand and reflect what's going on in our world beyond our brain matter. Alright? Ito yung sinabi ni Pythagoras. Yung harmony as a concept, applicable yan hindi lamang sa pagtugtog. Applicable yan sa understanding natin ng buong universe. Sabi niya, may harmony among the stars. May harmony among not only the stars, may harmony among numbers. And if you only understand the harmony among the stars and among the numbers, then there is so much you can use as rules and principles, all right? So that you can have control over your life and destiny. Like the rule, A square plus B square equals C square. Ayan. So, hindi lamang sa iniwanan tayo ni Pythagoras ng magandang definition of philosophy, iniwanan din niya tayo ng isang paniwala, isang outlook that in our minds, among our thoughts, we can get to see and understand coherence and harmony. And that's why he says, maybe to be able to understand how you can have harmony in your thoughts, in our minds, how you can have coherence in our minds, maybe that's the reason why, sabi niya, we need to spend an entire lifetime. An entire lifetime. Hindi pwedeng basta na lang kung may oras ka at may leisure hours. And so he spends his entire lifetime doing philosophy. There you go. Alright? Our definition of philosophy. Grabe, no? Kung saan-saan tayo umabot. Meron ba kayong mga tanong? Alright? Dito tayo nagsimula eh. Saan? Saan? Ito pinagmulan natin. Remember? Saan tayo nagsimula? Saan tayo nagsimula? doon sa pagbubungguan ng tectonic plates. Doon sa pagputok ng bulkan. Doon sa gera, invasion ng Persia. By the time you know it, ano nangyari? By the time you know it, may understanding na tayo ng integrated circuits and artificial intelligence. Ang haba ng ating tatakbuhin. Any question? Any comments? Please. Tama si Mr. San Juan. Yes. Tama po. Circuits. Yes. Tama po, Mr. San Juan. Oh, very good. Okay. Everybody. So far, nasundan yung usapan natin, ha? Sabi ni Mr. San Juan, ergo, more contradiction taken into account, less unified our thoughts become. Tama po ba? Yes. Alam mo, Mr. San Juan, pag maraming contradiction sa isipan mo, you predict the future, something else happens. Halimbawa, sabi nung isang mama, ay, what is that COVID thing? Sinabi niya, February 20. Sabi niya, that COVID thing, you do not have to be afraid of that thing. Alright? It's not anything to be afraid of. Yan ang sabi niya about the future. Kaya ano ngayon nangyari? Naloko na. Kasi sanay na sanay, sasabihin doon sa isa, ikaw lamang at ikaw lamang ang mahal ko. Tapos sasabihin doon sa isa, tingnan niyo ako ha. Sasabihin doon sa isa, ikaw lamang at ikaw lamang ang mahal ko. Sasabihin doon sa isa, ikaw lamang at ikaw lamang ang mahal ko. Sasabihin doon sa isa, ikaw lamang at ikaw lamang ang mahal ko. Ikaw, by the time you know it, nasanay ng masyado sa contradiction sa buhay niya. At dahil kumapalang mukha sa contradiction, nabuhay na punong-puno ng contradiction. Mr. San Juan, ang kanyang isipan, nawala ng harmony. Alright? Nawala ng harmony. Nung nawala ng harmony, he predicts the future, something else happens. Parang si Erap, punong-puno ng contradiction sa buhay, sabi niya, the economy is going in this direction. Naku, kung inabot niya, sa 2. Sabi ni Erap, dito papunta ang economy, dito pumunta. So he ends up what? In jail. Kaya kayong mga Pilipino, tayo magkakababayan, pag-aralan natin kung paano nagtatali-tali, nagtatagpo-tagpo, nagkakaayos ang ating mga nasa isipan. Ang tawag dyan, pamimilosopiya. Alright? I will wait for more of your comments. But meanwhile, kailangan pakawalan ko na kayo. Bakit? Kasi one, ay baka may klase pa kayo sa ibang klase. Ikalawa, ako din. Ikatlo ay, pardon the expression ay CR na ako. Alright, sana naman may natutunan kayo Huwag magagalit pag minsan talagang bastos ako ganyan mga Batanggenyo puro tayo kabastos. Magandang hapon po. Salamat sa inyong lahat.